I think we're there. Let's see what comes up on the YouTube thingy. Let's see. Am I live chat? Live chat. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I think we're live.
interesting.
Live chat.
Hey guys.
I got a lot of volume on. Yeah, except
Oh, that's interesting. Live chat.
I got tremendous volume there. If I could cut everything else off, maybe I could do that.
Maybe.
I mean,
I don't know. Happy Easter,
let's
everybody.
see.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Now, what I have to do is probably it's not going to work, actually. What I have to do is probably it's not going to work, actually.
Do you have a pair of headphones? I wonder if that would help. Because that's what I'm using right now is headphones. So it might help. But I'm not 100% sure. And I've lost you all together on audio. Can you hear me? Hey, can you guys in the live stream? Can y'all hear me? Just checking to see.
Yeah, I cut my volume. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
No, I can't hear you. Honest to God.
Yeah, something's going on with technology today, you guys, because today everything that's electronic I've touched has just glitched. All day.
Yeah, we're on now. The problem I'm having is that I have low volume where I am. So I'm just having trouble hearing Dina. So we'll just have to make her holler and then we'll be good. Hey, Rambo, Deborah Walt Hitch, Gary Stein, Chloe, Guppy Love 420. Got echoes. They're gone now. The echo should be gone now, right? Got no echo.
I don't hear an echo on my end.
I've got YouTube muted, so we should be okay. Kevin Rosenberg. What was it? On the latest video, we used a clip from Kevin's tank, and he was it was noted that he lived in India. Thought that was it. Have you moved, Kevin?
Probably a what do you call it? VPN?
No, it was just an error that the editor made. He had some other people from India whose videos he had used, and it just never got changed. Yeah, John Brearley talking about the vid with LRB yesterday. That was pretty cool.
That was.
Let's see, we need to give him a wrench here. Oh, he's got one. Oh, Jenny's on it here. She is on it. She is passing out wrenches. All right, Jenny. Let's see.
I hope you had a blessed Resurrection Day too, Guppy Love.
Fishkeeper 19. Happy Easter to you. Kevin said he's not moved. Cons and nons. Happy Easter. All right.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Oh, dear. Tommy Denda has been talking to me about Easter. He wanted me to do an Easter video, and I kind of did. But then I got to think of the video that came out yesterday. The Which one was it? Make you and your make how to make you and your fish happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it kind of gets at it a little bit, and I wanted to nail that a little tighter today because it just fits the whole motif of what we're about here. The notion that if something goes wrong in our tank, if it's not catastrophic, if it's like cloudy water, too much algae, um, something relatively minor that's a little irritating, we can not do anything and it will likely clear up. And that happens because it is the nature of systems to stabilize themselves, the nature of natural systems to stabilize themselves. So something that's out of balance will come into balance. It cannot remain out of balance because that's not the nature of reality. It's not the
So
nature of
true.
creation. And it strikes them when you think about Easter and what Easter really is all about. Easter is the attempt to destroy good with evil. I mean, that's really the message. The attempt to destroy good with evil. Evil creates instability. It creates death. It creates chaos. It creates confusion, misunderstanding, suffering, all of that. That's the nature of evil. It's defined theologically as being in conflict with God or in conflict with creation. It cannot persist. It is impossible for evil, for chaos, for confusion and misunderstanding to persist because of the nature of reality. Reality does not permit evil to persist. It can have an impact. It can achieve disturbance. The disturbance can be great and terrible. But whatever is disrupted will come back into balance, will come back into harmony. That's the message of our aquariums. It's the message of Easter. It is the message of good over evil. Evil, destruction, chaos, confusion, distress, disturbance, sickness, all of that cannot persist. So I
Absolutely.
put it to you that however you are experiencing chaos, meditate on harmony, on balance, on the natural world, on reality, on creation, on the will of God. However, you want to define that, that is the nature of things, to bring that which is destructive back into harmony.
Absolutely. That needs to be made into a short right there.
Right.
Because you need to just take that clip out and make it into a short. Because that was
Yeah, we'll
good.
do that. We'll do that. We're definitely, definitely will do that. Texas Rose, happy Resurrection Day. And that's what resurrection is. That's why we call it a resurrection jar. That's what the whole notion of resurrection is is the reestablishment of balance and harmony and goodness over chaos and evil and destruction.
Mhm.
So I put it to you, Biden will lose, and whether Trump or whoever, the alternative of balance and harmony and goodness will defeat evil. It simply will. We must have absolute faith in that. And I think in large measure, we see it again. We see it in our aquariums. We see it in our political life. We see it in so many ways. So many people get really forlorn and feel like everything is crap. Nothing is going to ever get better. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. That is not the nature of reality. It just is not. It cannot sustain itself. It simply cannot.
Absolutely.
Whether it's and that's what our fish tank is teaching us. Our
That it
aquarium
does.
is teaching us the nature of the nature of reality, the nature of nature, the nature of creation, which is to be in harmony, to be in balance, to be healthy, to be dynamic, to be harmonious, and to overcome chaos, to overcome difficulty, to overcome struggle, to overcome problems, whatever they are.
And that there needs to be another short because that I could see where that would inspire a lot of people, especially around Easter. Like you
Really?
got to make that one into a short too.
Spring fever. I love fish, and you have problems. What in the world are you talking about, spring fever?
Yeah, I'm not seeing him.
Jenny didn't
Oh,
give you a wrench.
okay.
I'm going to do it just on the off chance that you may get your head straight. Karen Hahn, amen. Putin will get away with it for a while, but it'll catch up with him eventually. Well, and he ain't alone. He ain't alone. There are a lot of agents of chaos that think they're in control and are trying as best they can to exert themselves. Here's a thing. Here's a thing. It the environment. The environment. Now here you go. The environment. What is the environment? The environment is the is it is nature on this earth. It is the natural world on this earth. Now, those who think human beings are capable of destroying nature have to believe that somehow human beings are either ultimately suicidal and nature along with them, or they believe that human beings are somehow not a part of nature. If their assumption is that we as humans are destroying nature. We as humans are not we destroy nature at the cost of our own existence. And there is nothing in nature that seeks its own destruction. We are natural beings. We are a function of the nature system. We are created as an aspect of the natural world. We simply are. We're as much a natural being as any bug or any animal, any other animal. There is no animal that seeks its own destruction and the destruction of its environment, nor do we.
That's true.
I believe this. I believe that the panic that is felt about the environment is based on fear and deception. And the fear and deception cause an attempt to bring about some fundamental change in what we are doing, which has the effect of making matters worse. For example, the whole notion of controlling CO2. How do we control CO2 in our aquarium? We add plants. We add plants. And that controls CO2. What is the earth doing? What is the nature system doing as CO2 rises? It is growing more plants. There are more plants on this planet today than there had been in 1,000 years, 2,000 years.
Yeah, and we
Plant
have
life
people
on
that cut
this
down the
planet
trees.
is
They're now
greater
planting them back.
today than it was 50 years ago. Why is that? Because there is more CO2. So the problem is not CO2. CO2 is not a problem. It is simply an aspect of the balance. Nature achieves balance. But by trying to take away that CO2, we're stressing plant life, the plants that are otherwise controlling it. We're creating poverty and misery. We're we're establishing authoritarian rules against development, our own attempts to move forward with our society, with our culture. We're creating tyranny in the process of trying to overcome something that is misunderstood to be a problem. Those who scream the loudest about environmental destruction are themselves the cause of environmental destruction. Think about this for a minute. Think about it seriously, and you'll realize it's true. There is no environmental destruction as we develop and mature, as increasingly, however you want to put it, developed culture, society, environment. We bring about change, and that change establishes a new harmony. When we try to stop that or somehow conflict with that, we create disturbance, we create chaos, and we create greater problems than existed to begin with. Whereas before there was the fear of a problem, now there is a very real problem.
That's a really
It is a
interesting
lack
viewpoint. I've never heard this
of
one before.
faith
This is
and
interesting.
confidence in the goodness of creation, in the goodness of the universe, in the goodness of the nature system, in the health and balance of the nature system. There is, I'll say it again, nothing in that fish tank that in and of itself is destructive. It is only what we do to it that can be destructive. Left alone, it may wither for lack of nutrient, but it will not destroy itself. It takes very little nutrient to keep it going. Very little effort to keep it going. Making these drastic, dramatic, extreme changes is never a good thing to do. Absolutely never. It creates chaos. It creates imbalance. It creates disharmony. Gentleness, sensitivity, awareness, compassion, understanding, mercy, if you will, a sweetness and a loving spirit engender the harmony that is at the heart of reality. God didn't make no mistakes. He didn't create chaos. If we fear chaos, we need to overcome our fear because it is our fear and the reaction that we engender through that fear that creates the very chaos we fear. So there is my Easter Sunday sermon that I very much wanted to preach this morning and could not.
Oh
Instead, we
no.
had a pastor who talked about all the mistakes people made and how we should not make mistakes. But I think he left Jesus in the grave. I didn't get any resurrection out of the message.
You need to make a channel
Spring
just
fever.
for sermons, and then you can get on there anytime you want and do a sermon.
What is this? Spring fever. What is this? It's terrible. I watched not so long ago a cartoon about the escape of chickens from a chicken coop. Your American one, your American one, it's horrible. There was chicken from the oven for dinner. What in the world?
I have no idea what that even
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, I had ham for dinner, so I guess that was the pig getting out of the sty. I don't know. Tried being vegan, almost died. Yeah, I'm on a pure protein diet. I eat all the meat I can and all the dairy I can. And I'm healthier than I've ever been and I'm losing weight. Nature eats
That's
meat. They want us to believe vegan is healthy. Yeah, right. Exactly. The agenda. True enough. Does the Bible say anything about veganism? That's a good question. I
no.
don't think so. The Bible says everything is good to eat.
Yeah.
Everything that is edible is good to eat. It doesn't distinguish. There are admonitions about pork, and I don't think it's because pork is evil. Pork and shellfish. I think it's because pork and shellfish traditionally have uh, have been sources of of sickness. They've they shellfish particularly can foul very quickly and very easily, as can pork. I don't think
That's
there's
true.
any more to it than that, frankly.
Yeah, is somebody allergic to shellfish? Yeah, it'd be bad if I ate it.
I love shellfish, yeah,
Oh,
but
I
I tell
used to before
you,
I became
I have a
allergic.
nose and a palate that will detect the tiniest disturbance with any kind of shellfish. If it's slightly off, either by smelling it or tasting it, even the slightest amount off, I won't eat it. I can't
Hey,
eat
that's
it.
good that you can tell that. That's good.
Yeah, you can tell. I mean, you don't just scarf stuff down. You put it in your mouth and taste it before you
Right?
swallow it. I do.
That's true.
My daughter is allergic to shellfish. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think that can happen. My grandfather was, and he was a waterman. That was particularly difficult,
I imagine it was.
really. It says something about not eating pork. Yeah, That does. That's right. But I don't think that's not because they were Brahmins and wouldn't eat beef because they were sacred. It's not because pigs were demonic particularly, although they were not they were not prized food by a long shot. But you think about it, goat is a lot dirtier than a pig, and the Far East eats lots of goat. I like goat. I enjoy goat. Um, I can't get goat locally in a way that in a cuisine that I like. There's a Caribbean shop nearby that does goat, and I don't like the seasonings they put in it. And it makes it too sweet, and I just don't like it. But
Yeah, I've never
when I
tried
was in
goat.
Haiti,
What kind of
when I
flavor is
was in
that?
Haiti, I ate
Like,
quite a lot of goat, and I ate it on the street. I would buy it on the street in
oh,
little
that's cool.
carts. Little, people would people were had their little carts and were cooking goat, and I enjoyed it. Evidence
What's the
eating meat and
flavor of
animal
goat
fat in the
like?
Bible. Yeah, I don't think it's because sloths are saying. I think it's because shellfish and lobster eat dirty things and dead stuff. Um, Actually, that's not true. Shellfish, crabs are a good example. The notion is that crabs eat dead fish. Actually, 90% of the diet of a crab is plant material. They're true vegetarians. They eat plants primarily, and a lot of other. Now lobsters don't. Lobsters will. They'll actually break open a clam and eat it. Um, if you look at, I've been in the environment enough to know that it is only when animals like shellfish, crabs, inverts, and vertebrates, it's only when they die and are still fresh that they're eaten by other animals. There are very few animals that will eat rotted flesh. Um, there are a few birds that'll eat rotted flesh. They have a system that is uniquely equipped to handle it. But most animals will avoid rotted flesh. So it's really not true. Prawns eat all the rubbish. Yeah, really not true. They primarily eat plant material. That's 90%. There's been a fair amount of research so that has established that the primary food for invertebrates, particularly the insect type invertebrates. Primary food is vegetable matter.
That's good to know.
Bottom scavengers. Well, right, but what's on the bottom? It's worms. It's living things. It's algae. It's worms. It's shrimp, um, crabs, small fish, living things primarily. They're not eating mud. They're really not. Catfish don't eat mud. They eat things that are living on the bottom. And there's actually a great deal more living on the bottom than is in the water column. I mean, if you maintaining in our aquariums, we see that clearly. In aquariums, we see that the biomass, the microbiota, all the microbes, the microbial critters are living on the bottom. They're not in the water column. There are very few that are in the water column. They're primarily on the bottom and on the surface of things, like on the surface of plants. When you see a fish nibbling on a plant, it's likely not eating the plant, it's eating what's on the plant. It's eating the microbial life, the perhaps the fungus that's growing on it, the algae that's growing on it, or the little animals that are scurrying about finding food on the plants. Now, Stallion raises the issue of pollution, and it's a genuine concern, but there is much more made of the problem of pollution. Here's the truth of the matter. There is vastly more. Okay, let's start this way. There are two kinds of pollution. There is excess nutrient, too much poop in the water. All right. Third world countries that don't have sanitary systems dispose of their waste in running water, typically. That creates a certain kind of pollution. If it reaches a given level, the natural environment can be overcome by it, and it can create excess bacterial um, bacterial growth, bacterial development that grows in an effort to consume that waste. And some of those bacteria are themselves dangerous if ingested. In and of themselves, the bacteria are there because they are consuming the waste. But the waste level is so high that it generates types of bacteria that are increasingly virulent, increasingly aggressive in breaking down waste. And when ingested, will bring that same dynamic into your gut and break down the other natural flora that exists in your gut that breaks down food and um, will create sickness. It'll create a disruption in your digestive system. That's one kind of pollution. The other kind of pollution is what's referred to as heavy metals. Heavy metals, like, well, a very good example is mercury. Mercury has become a serious problem in many of the creeks, streams, and smaller rivers in South America, where it is being used in flowing water because it attaches to gold, and it's more easily harvested than and burned off, literally burned off with fire, because mercury burns and releases the gold, which doesn't burn. So it's creating a double kind of pollution: the pollution of excess mercury in the water column and excess mercury in the air. That's a very genuine and a very serious kind of pollution. Mercury exists in nature. It is a natural substance. But when when um, when created en masse, when pulled together in large quantities, it becomes toxic by virtue of its excessive presence. Nature in itself eventually breaks that down, dissipates it, and reduces its impact. So it can be brought to bear on an environment to be destructive, but that environment will in time dissipate it. It breaks it down to the point where it is less and less and less obtrusive. less and less destructive. The same is true of biological pollution, too much poop pollution that dissipates itself. It's broken down and spread out and becomes less and less an issue as it moves into open water, into less polluted environments, such that in a relatively short period of time, it no longer is problematic. I've been paying attention for my whole life because of the Chernobyl accident in '86. Oh, that's interesting. Spring fever was in Chernobyl.
Wow.
That's a good example of an intensely destructive, violent act that over time is dissipating and breaking down, and in point of fact seems to be doing so more quickly than we thought it would.
That's
Nevertheless, its impact on the human body has created instant death in some people, created long term cancers and other health conditions that persist perhaps even throughout their lives. We see this, we're seeing this in the most extreme circumstances with the jabs that were used in the billions over the last number of years that have created upwards of 200 million severe medical conditions and
wow.
death. Have I ever been to the Amazon? No, I never have. That's a bucket list for me. I'm not sure I could do it anymore. I'm not sure I have the stamina or the physical balance really to be able to handle myself very well. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get another 10 to 20 pounds off. I've lost 50 pounds. So I'm a whole lot better than I was. I need to get another 20 to 30 off to really be able to handle that. Nevertheless, I'm 83 years old. I don't fall down. I've got pretty good balance to that. How can we bring Father Fish to the Amazon? I would love to do it. I absolutely would.
That would be cool.
Life of Flame has a question. What's your question? Talking about sharks, Stallion. I watched an Australian documentary. Did you know most people who get bit by sharks don't die from the attack, but die from secondary infection due to the teeth of the shark? Yeah, I'll bet that's true too. That's a tearing,
Yeah.
ripping kind of injury that causes just really severe damage to the body, to the flesh with that would create countless opportunities for bacterial infection. It's one of the problems from certain snake bites or animal bites is bacterial infection. There are certain animals. There's well, the what's the big
Moto dragon?
Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon's bite is toxic, not because it has a poison gland, but because the bacteria living in its mouth are so toxic that the sheer toxicity of its saliva is enough to put down whatever it's chewing on.
Yeah, they have a nasty bite, literally.
A nasty bite, yeah, you bet. Two-headed fish. A two-headed fish. Spring fever, born in 1990. When was Chernobyl? 30 years ago?
1986.
So you were a
38.
child, a young child when that happened. Wow. Scottish people live far less than English people due to the wind direction from Chernobyl. Remarkable.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Went to Ace, 50-pound bag of play sand for $4. Can't beat that.
Yeah, that's a good
Can't beat
deal.
that. And I tell you what, play sand, well, it is very dusty. Some call it dirty. If you put it on the dirt, on the soil, before you put water in the tank, and then cover it with a plastic bag and
Mhm.
put the water in so that you're not stirring it up at all. And then gently lift that plastic bag once it's full. There will be a little bit of cloudiness, but it really won't be much. And all of that dust will serve as a beneficial environment for bacteria to grow. So play sand, I used to put it down because it you can't pour it in the water. It just is way too cloudy. But if you're careful about it, it has a beneficial aspect by virtue of the variety of granular size in it. And that's kind of the key. It's called play sand because it's not graded. It's simply out of the ground as it comes and thrown into bags. Um, but used carefully, it's tremendously valuable. Three-headed fish and eight-armed horses,
What?
and neither of which are normal.
Yeah.
Neither of which are normal. Nature seeks to achieve normality. These kinds of things exist, but they exist at the extremities. They exist outside the norm. They are not normative. Normative is the balance and harmony that nature seeks. There is chaos at the edges, if you will. Seek to be in harmony and not in the chaos at the edges.
Right, definitely.
Ah, right. Ah, and that's Aquarium 101. You want your aquarium to be treated gently, harmoniously. If it's going to look nasty for a little while because that's the stage it's in, let it be. Scrape the algae off the front glass if you must. I tend less and less to do that because I'm more and more interested in how the snails and other animals are cleaning it because they do.
Same here.
They do. My 25-year-old tank never gets algae on the glass. It is kept pristine. The water might get a little cloudy occasionally because I've got a huge amount of light on that tank. 30-gallon tank, I've got 400 watts on it, blasting
Wow,
it, literally blasting it. I do have
that's
some
awesome.
algae. I did get some autosynclus recently, put a bunch of them in. I'm probably going to put more in so I can get some really good algae eaters going in there. But the algae is not killing plants. The plants are doing great. Schlozzers, they also clean the sides, back, rocks, driftwood plants, the whole bit. I believe a horse with arms is called a centaur. No, that's centaur. Eight or
Yeah, that is
otherwise. It's
right.
not eight, it's six. That would be six, not eight. Centaur is 10, isn't it? What is centaur?
Uh,
Cent is
from
10.
what
I
I
don't
from what
know.
I've read mythology, centaurs would be basically they have the body, the lower body of a horse, and then where the head and neck would be the upper torso of a human.
The torso of a man, yeah. The torso of a man and the body of a horse.
Yep,
Strange, isn't it? Wonder if there are
it
two
is.
hearts.
Right.
Is there a human heart and a horse
That's a good
heart?
question.
Curious.
Yeah, I've always loved reading mythology, so
Rambo deep fries tadpoles. Not a lot of food value there.
No, that wouldn't be a lot of food value.
ADHD, can you feed tadpoles to your fish? Tadpoles are an excellent fish food. Really, really excellent. And Stan Pittman is a professional algae farmer. Well, there are such uh, people, of course. There's all kinds of algae that's harvested as food. Gransley grebe, my 5-gallon fatherfish style betta tank, has a huge algae problem, but the plants are doing great as well. Aquafacima asking if Dina saw my question.
Found
Did
it.
you
I
what
found
is
it. I
it?
was looking for it. What creates the most CO2 underwater in the wild? Because wild plants are growing good.
Say that I did not hear what you said.
Let me try it again.
Say
Can
it
you hear
again.
me this time? Can you
A
hear me
little
now?
better. Yeah.
Okay. What creates the most CO2 underwater in the wild?
Ah, good question. I would expect the mud. The mud is a CO2 factory. I mean, that's its primary function, to create CO2. That's why plants do so well in mud, because they have this incredibly immediately available enriched CO2 environment. So they're able to pull CO2 up through the roots, not just out of the water, but through their roots.
That makes sense.
There's really very little, there are fish that are other microbiota in the water column, but there's really not much in the water column that creates CO2. Mostly they're plants and algae in the water column creating oxygen. So it's kind of the reverse. So the bulk of CO2 in a water environment would be created in the substrate, in the mud.
Darbwire has a question for you, Father Fish. He wants to know, can black or other worms be added to the soil layer to create a worm food web?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and they will do remarkably well. Another critter is MTS, the Malaysian trumpet snails. They work the same way a worm does. I had somebody recently make the comment that they were worried about their MTS because it's getting covered in sand, they said. And I thought that was, it demonstrated the utter lack of understanding that person has of what those snails are doing in there, because that's their natural environment. You only see them when they're coming up out of the sand, typically in the evening when it starts getting dark and they're coming up into the water column. Uh, Probably because I don't know why. Maybe to breathe. I don't know why. Not to eat particularly, because they've got a rich source of nutrient in the substrate. They're probably coming up to breathe, to get oxygen.
That makes sense. I mean, I would figure they would need to breathe. I've never seen any gills on worms, so it makes sense.
Well, they don't have gills, but they do breathe. They take in air through through the pores in their body.
Oh, no, that's neat. I had
Probably
no idea.
nibbling on the algae. Well, yeah, that too. A fish keeper see a snail and acts like snowflakes landed. The snail will probably save you. Well, that's absolutely right, Stallion. If you have snails in your tank, get down on your hands and knees and bow down to them because they are saving your silly butt from destroying the tank.
Preach it, because yeah, I love snails, and especially as somebody that's more of a beginner than a lot of others to natural fish keeping. I know those things have saved me and my fish. They have saved me a lot of heartache and a lot of having to sit there
You
and scrub
bet.
the tank for no reason.
Can black worms give camellias to fish? No. Camellias do not infest black worms. What else have we got here?
Cornwall's got me tickled again because he's like snail for president, and I'm like, okay, that's funny.
Dale for president. That's funny. Okay, Smurfy. My fish thrive on MTS eggs. I have never seen an MTS egg in my life.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Never.
Never heard of
What
that.
precisely is an MTS egg? A Malaysian trumpet snail egg. I could not begin to. I mean, maybe I've just missed it somehow. But I've had tanks infested with Malaysian trumpet snails, and I've never seen anything that even approximates an egg. My hunch is if they lay eggs, and they may well, they do it in the dirt.
That would make sense because I've got a 2 gallon behind me that I have a bunch of Malaysian trumpet snails in and Oompa Ula shrimp, and I've never seen any eggs at all.
Funny, funny. Ariel says, Father Fish, I love your videos and your philosophy. I'm wondering, recently set up a Father Fish 40 breeder, got 3 rosy red minnows and 2 comets. To start the cycle, they've been nibbling at my plants or nipping. They're not eating the plants. They're eating what is on the plants. It's unlikely that they are eating the plants. Rosy red minnows and comets. I've seen comets tear plants up. That could be. The minnows, unlikely. Um, just put more plants in. You'll have enough fish in there to make a difference. Just put more plants in, you'll overwhelm them. They'll grow faster than they can be nipped. Not a problem. Am I feeding them enough? Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Put more plants in. Dana Cock, other than creating a few leaves and twigs, how soon can I add items from Resurrection Jar? Well, you don't need to wait. The main purpose of creating the Resurrection Jar is to see what's in it and to get some comfort level about it and to make sure you're not putting things in there like dragonfly larvae that you really don't want in there. So yeah, you can be adding it. Do it slowly. You don't want to dump the whole thing in because you can pollute it. You can put more nutrient in there than the biological system that has developed to that point is capable of handling, and it can get overwhelmed. So you want to do this with some sensitivity. Just be gentle, go slow about it, and it'll be fine. They lay them at the top level, Murphy is saying, the top level of water. You know what? I don't think that's what that is. What do they look like, these eggs you're seeing?
Is there
Where
any
is
way you
that
can post it
comment?
onto the show where we could see a
I
picture?
lost the comment. Dylan is tuning in from Hawaii. Um,
See if I missed any questions.
where is that comment? I lost it.
I'm looking, but
Who was it who said that even?
that's what I was trying to remember too. Doom Pie, he said something very interesting that Malaysian trumpet snails give birth to live babies. I've never heard of a snail doing that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's my thought. I think they do too. There are a number of snails that give birth live. The apple
Wow.
snail gives birth live. They'll actually deliver one baby a day. Smurfy Good Times is who it was.
Oh, let's see.
And
Hmm.
I'm looking for, there it is. They lay them at the top level of water. Now, are they out of the water, Smurfy, or in the water? These eggs you're seeing. Let's see if we get an answer from them on that. Invasive snails. One of the more common, what is this over here? Ooh,
Oh, peace, love, and puppies. She
yeah.
did a super chat, and she
Is
wants
it
to. She got a question for you. Yep.
$9.99? What does it say? If,
It says if I put cuddle bone in my fish tank to feed my snails, will it cause it to get cloudy?
no, it will not. Absolutely will not. And thank you so much for the super chat. No, that you're adding calcium. That's a really good thing to do. It will slowly dissolve, but very, very slowly. Uh, Cuttlebone does not dissolve fast enough to cloud the water. So
That's good.
that's actually a very good thing to do.
I
Maggot
never
farm for
thought
my
about that,
fish,
but
you bet.
that's good. But it is strange
Uh,
that some snails actually give
I was
live
told
birth.
20
I've never,
minutes ago that ramshorn snails are invasive pests. So I got them to give me all they had. Good move, Christian.
right?
Need to send some to me. Mel Wool, happy Easter. Stallion koi. People overfeed commercial fisheries, but why did they never have ammonia spikes? Because they don't have a filter but an ecosystem. That's why Father Fish talks about creating your own ecosystem. Yeah, typically they have flowing water. I mean,
Mhm.
they have built their fish farm like trout farms, for example. Trout farms are built as runways where the water is going through, it's flowing constantly. So there's no chance for a buildup. Yeah, Stallion's talking about, sloths are talking about growing out ram's horns. Mel Wolf ships ram's horns. There are some nice color variations too of ram's horn. Gap
Isn't
in
Aquatic
fish's
has a
tail.
question for you. Their question is, Father Fish, I'm trying to breed my beta. My boy is bigger than the girl. The female has an egg spot, and the male is making a bubble nest. I tried to release the girl, but the boy became mad. What do I do?
What you want to do is float the female in a jar in with the male so he can't beat it up, but he'll get real interested in her and blow a nest. And then when you do release her, after a half a day or a day or so, they're more likely to spawn. You don't want to just dump her in there. Introduce her by putting her in a glass bowl or a jar and floating it. That way he can't beat her up, but he'll see her and he'll react to her. She will react to him, and they'll try to get together without the aggression. So that when you do release them, they'll be more willing to cooperate and spawn than to be aggressive. That works also with large females, because older females, I've seen them beat up males, particularly younger males. Don't want to say anything more about that. Honored that you're actually speaking to me unbelievably, says Dana. Well, you're very welcome, Dana. Who's this? Megan Bakuk. I made my first jar today. How do I know what's good and bad? That's a really good question. How do you know what's good and bad? If it's monstrous, like an inch long, and it's eating other stuff, then you probably don't want it in your tank. But the only thing that really is a problem, well, there are three things. One is dragonfly larvae. Mayfly larvae are smaller and skinnier, but they're also a predator. So if you've got really tiny critters like a shrimp tank with tiny baby shrimp, you probably don't want the mayfly larvae either. Another one is the tapeworm. Now, most tapeworms are not a problem. In point of fact, tapeworms are not a problem at all, because they really don't kill fish. Some of the tapeworms, the ones with the diamond head, can attach themselves to fish, but they don't kill the fish. They'll suck a little juice out, enough to feed them, and they drop off and have their eggs and go about their business. It would take a huge population of them to actually become detrimental to fish. And that's not going to happen because fish eat them. They are a natural food. And the same is true of the Aptasia. Aptasia is a natural food for fish like bettas and for live bearers. So there really is very little, other than the really big stuff, that's going to be a problem. We need a discus video, Joby, and I couldn't agree more. We do indeed. I've got 10 new tanks here. You can see some of them. I'll show you. Let me show you my tanks. See if I can do this. I'm going to screw up my camera. Look at this. 2 there, 1 there. 1, 2, 3, 4 there. 2 more over there. 1 here. This big one. In back of it, you can see the top of it is a 160. I've got
That's
10
awesome.
big tanks here that need to be set up. And looking at it exhausts me. I haven't been able to get the gumption up to actually get into it and do them yet. I will. I promise you I will. I think at this point,
part done.
yeah, well, the hard part was getting them. Bring it.
Right.
They're not even ready yet. I've got to get boards cut to put on the stands so that they sit level. I hired a guy to make stands for me. Big
Oh,
mistake.
that's awesome.
He made the stands
no.
without understanding what I was trying to do. And so the stands didn't fit the tanks. And this was after paying a huge amount of money for them. I was presented with a bill today for the repairs, the fix that the carpenter did to make them fit the stand. And it's still inadequate. So I'm going to go out and buy 3/4 inch plywood to fit 16 inches deep, 4 feet wide. And that's what the tanks are going on. and that'll work just fine. It'll cost me one big sheet of plywood, and it'll be done.
Right?
Then I start putting dirt in them. I need I need 10 large bags of dirt. 10 large bags of dirt takes my dirt person about 4 hours to create.
Wow.
We can't keep up with the orders now. So I don't quite know how I'm going to pull this off. We're
Hey, you'll
always
pull it off.
short. We're always short on dirt. I'm going to have to get out there and do it myself. I got to
Just
start
put
making
one
dirt
tank
for
at a
my
time.
tank. You know, and I would not dare set up a tank without using my own product. So it's going to have spotted fish dirt in it, guaranteed.
That's gonna be
I
awesome.
got I'm screwing around with things here. I I can't do all this. It's all just too complicated for me. How do we get this to tilt? I think I
Um,
don't. Oh, I know
it
how.
might be able to. Is there like a little lever on the side?
No, I increased the length of the leg. That's how I do it.
Oh, you got a question, Father Fish. Um, does Father Fish like plecos? What's your favorite fish?
Come again.
They want to know if you like plecos and what's your favorite fish? And
If I
it's
like
at
plecos, what my favorite is. Oh, yeah, I do like plecos. I especially like the L series. There's so many really, really cool ones. I've got a couple of green, what are they called? Green, whatever they're called. Green monsters. What in the world? Philip
wow.
Fishworks, $100. You go, Phillips Fishworks. Mercy. Thank you so much. That's pretty incredible.
That
Never
is.
had anybody lay $100 on me. That pretty impressive. Thank you so much, Philip. Wow, that's neat.
Thank
Um,
you. That is
check out
awesome.
Phillips Fishworks. Make sure you post your link. Great, great channel. Doing some really super duper stuff. Let's see if I can get. If you click on the red dot, on the three dots on the
Mhm.
end, um, the
There's his channel.
second the second one down, channel activity. That's the third one down. Go to channel. Click on his
Yep,
channel and go there and sign up and check
doing
out
it now.
Philip Stitchworks. And thank you again for the $100 super chat. Mercy,
Yep.
mercy.
And I'm gonna put the link in in the chat box.
Wowzer is right, says Slauzers. Oh dear, peace, love, puppies. Really, too impressive. Stone Date Farmer. Haven't seen you in a while. Jenny, make sure he's got a wrench. I'm going to beat you to it.
But that is
Very.
amazing.
Can a male betta live in a healthy resurrection jar? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's probably the best place in the world for a betta is a resurrection jar. It'll keep him happy permanently until he eats everything
Definitely.
up. He will eat everything up too. You'll be amazed. Yeah, that's it. Which is to say, a great way to keep bettas is to keep them in a food web environment
Mhm.
because it keeps them busy and active and searching for food all the time. A fish that is searching for food is going to be a very healthy fish. So you want them, you want food that they can find. Stallion Koi, free giveaway for $100 super chat. We could do that. Can we do that? We can
I
do
don't know.
that. Philip is shipping. We can do that. What do we get for 150 corn? Do you like epiphyte plants that are on stones and roots on the substrate? I do. I do very much.
Dean has a question. Father Fish, I have a question. I have an old tank with a slate bottom. How hard would it be to replace the bottom it leaks?
Oh, I would. Is it broken? What's the problem with it? I would simply put a bead of silicone around it to seal it. I wouldn't try to replace it. Those tanks are too hard to come by, frankly. You've got a real antique there. And the slate is a much safer bottom for a tank than any kind of tempered or other glass.
I've
So
never
you can use silicone. Just put a bead of silicone in it. Or if you really want to go old school, get some roofing tar and varnoline. Varnoline's hard to come by. A good quality paint shop will have varnoline. Varnaline. It's a softener for roofing tar. You heat the tar, pour a little varnoline in. When you do it, you want to be careful because it is highly combustible. That will soften the whole mass. And then you turn that tank on edge and pour a bead of that tar in, turn it again, pour it again. Each time, wait for it to harden enough. Takes about 5 minutes for it to harden enough to be able to turn it without it continuing to flow. That will make a natural bead. That's the way they were originally made. So it's pretty exciting to try to do that. But that's the way you do it anyway. Or just
That's
get a
interesting.
tube of silicone, aquarium silicone, and put a bead around the seams. What reptile can live with fish? Aquatic frogs certainly can. Axolotls can. There's a snake called a elephant trunk snake that is an aquatic snake. It lives in water. It's from Vietnam. A little hard to come by. I've had them. They eat fish. Most reptiles are in water because they're eating the fish that are in the water. So you want to be somewhat careful. The most obvious one are the pygmy aquatic frogs, and they're real easy to keep. They eat little tiny crustacea, little worms. They'll eat regular fish food. They'll eat pellets. They're easy to keep. The black clawed frog gets kind of big. They can get up to a foot long, so they can be problematic in a tank. But when they're small, you can keep them with fish. There are a few things. There's not a lot. Axolotls need to be kept cooler, probably. Although I've got friends who claim that really is not true. I have other friends who insist that absolutely is true. So, you know, flip a coin, take your make your choice and take your chances. But axolotls will live with larger fish. I've had them with molly type fish. Eventually, they eat them because they catch them at night.
Patty's Aquatics has a question for you, Father Fish. What are your thoughts on LRB's no filter, no air method? I see. I do no filter, but thinking of cutting out the air.
Cutting out what? Air?
Cut, yes, sir.
Well, right. LRB does no air. No air, no filter. He also does not do deep substrates. Now he does have substrate. Typically, it's a thin layer of sand, but he's doing some tanks now that have a shovel of dirt. And it's dirt from a bog area, so it has bog plants
Oh,
growing
that'll be
in it that
good.
are growing up out of it. So he's doing kind of a modified wall stem. Um, it's all about balance. It's all about the harmony we're talking about. He sets that tank up and he leaves it alone, puts a few fish in it and lets it do its thing. He doesn't go back and fiddle with it. He just lets it develop its own stability. And it does. It does every single time. That is the nature of the tank to stabilize.
And
Richie Stuna,
aquatics. Go ahead.
a
Sorry.
Varad queer.
Pippin Creek Aquatics actually has a question for you. They want to know how your baby oxalotls are doing.
Well, I've got about a dozen. They're about quarter of an inch long now, a little bigger. I've got some brine shrimp coming. I've been feeding them on food web. So far they're doing pretty well. I haven't looked at them today. I'm getting a little nervous because it's been almost 2 weeks. And 2 weeks is kind of the max. Once they hit that 2 week period, then they're going to start predating on each other. So I've
Oh,
got to get the brine shrimp going. I ordered it. It hadn't come yet, which means it'll be at least another 2 days. That's if it comes tomorrow and I get it set up. So probably 3 days before I can get food to it. So I'm going to have to dump more food web in there. I put some eggs in another vat that had food web, but it had scuds in it. Didn't realize that. Did not think it did, and they have disappeared. I think the scuds wiped them out. But I do have at least one batch. So I'm hoping to keep that going. I'll know
I hope it
more.
works out.
Pardon?
I said, I hope it works out because I've always heard those are
Yeah.
very difficult to raise.
Well, I really want to do it. We'll start showing them.
Absolutely.
The girls have been taking pictures of them every day.
Oh, that's awesome. Matthew Hoover has
Uh,
a question. Will a betta fish be fine in an unheated aquarium?
will a beta?
Will a betta be fine in an unheated aquarium?
Okay, right. Well, it depends how cold it gets. They can tolerate temperatures down to about 70. Below that, they struggle. Um, they're from environments that are tropical, where the natural temperature of the water is 80 to 90. Um, they can tolerate it a little cooler, down to about 70. I try to always keep them above that 75 minimum. I'm wanting to move some into the shop here. I do have heaters in some vats. So what I'm probably going to do is set it up that way, put them in heated vats. I'm waiting right now to get some females. I just bought a couple of beautiful males. I showed them off last night on with LRB. They're really pretty males.
They are beautiful.
As soon as I can get some females, we're trying to get them going. I really want to spawn bettas and get them going in vat environments where they can be fed by food web.
That's gonna be awesome.
Male platy had a white fungus on its head, very skinny. He got an injury. The injury became infected. The infection killed some of the flesh, and fungus is eating that dead flesh. So you have a secondary infection based on typically an injury. Take him out, put a spot of neosporin or some other antibacterial ointment directly on the injury, and then put them back in the tank. Most of it'll fall off, but it will leave enough of a thin layer to be able to defeat that bacteria that are growing on it and to allow the natural slime then to be excreted to protect the fish from further bacterial infection. If it doesn't work one time, try it a second time. It's pretty effective. Is it normal that I'm more interested in the tank plant's food web than the fish? Well, Darwar, you're a little weird, but not terribly so. That's not utterly abnormal. Can you keep
TK,
axolotl with fancy goldfish? That's pretty interesting. Can you keep axolotl with fancy goldfish? Yeah, the only issue is I think the axolotl will probably take after the goldfish. They'll probably go after their fins and probably chew them up. They won't do it during the day. They'll do it in the dark when the goldfish are laying on the bottom, and they're just going to grab them. Try it with some more common goldfish first and see how it goes. But that would be my hunch.
TK Tropics has a question, Father Fish. Do discus need soil or just sands?
You can do a deep substrate, soil substrate with discus. You absolutely can. I've done it. It's very effective. It reduces water changes, creates stability. It's absolutely fine. The only thing I've noticed with it, and I did have a problem. I was feeding them routinely, once or twice a day, because they were small and I wanted to grow them out. And I got impatient and I wound up fouling the water and they died. Um, they have to have a really good oxygen content, which means you've got to have a bubbler or some other mechanical means of moving water to keep the O2 level up. And you want to not overfeed. Overfeeding creates bacteria, which burns off oxygen, and it'll create a low oxygen environment. And discus cannot tolerate a low oxygen environment.
Discus are a beautiful fish, though. Saw my first one in real life a couple of weeks ago, and that's something that part of me wants to try keeping as a discus because they're just breathtaking.
Mel says because fungus is based on an injury bacterial infection, is the fungus not contagious to the rest of the tank? Or would you take the infected fish out or whatever? Well, it's the primary infection that's the problem, and that's the bacteria. It depends on what has caused it. If the bacteria is a type of bacteria that is transferring to other fish, and I frankly don't know what that could be. There are some pathogens that transfer to other fish and that create infection, and that will generate fungus. It's pretty uncommon. I think typically it's a good idea to pull any injured or infected fish out of the tank just because you want to be able to treat it separately. You want to have it in a sterile environment, a clean environment, and you want to be able to treat it. Typically, with some salt, use the antibacterial ointment if it's appropriate. Salt goes a long way to controlling bacteria, and if it's a more severe infection, you may need some kind of medication. So you don't ever want to do any of that in the tank. So it's a good idea to pull all infected fish or sick fish or injured fish out and set them up in a hospital tank. Was talking with LRB about that. I asked him, "What's a hospital tank?" He said, "It's another tank." And he doesn't he doesn't acknowledge the value of a hospital tank. He simply moves the fish to an empty tank. And that typically is all that's required. The fish will make it or it won't, um, without affecting anybody else. I've gravel when money is better. I plan to do father fish. You don't need this. $4, $4 at, where was it, Lowe's, for a 50-pound bag of play sand. Have you got $4 and the gas in the car to get there? That shouldn't burn a hole in your budget.
Chris has got a question. High nitrate in father fish setup, medium planted. Please help to lower. Thank you.
Add more plants. Nitrate, nitrite, high nitrite. If you have high nitrite, then you're overfeeding your tank. You've got too much nutrient in the tank. That means too much ammonia. The simplest fix is to stop feeding altogether and add more plants. That's going to control that environment. It'll get it back in balance. High nitrates means that the nitrifying bacteria that is converting ammonia to nitrates and nitrites to nitrates is inadequately established. So you're getting to the nitrite level and not getting to the nitrate level. It's unusual for that to happen. It only happens when there is excess nutrient in the tank. So stop feeding altogether. If you got food laying on the bottom, siphon or otherwise net it out. Add more plants. You can do a partial water change if you want, like 10, 15, 20%. Although that really won't be necessary if you'll do the other couple of things, and that nitrite will disappear. It won't be there anymore.
And Matthew Hoover, he
Father
just
Fish
wanted to
said
know that.
sterile. I clutched my pearls. Gotta watch those pearls, Erie. They get you in trouble. The perfect six. Have you tried something similar to algae terp scrubbers? Yeah, I kind of like them too. Um, I like I like algae in saltwater tanks. I like algae in freshwater tanks. There are just certain kinds of algae that are intolerable because they choke out the plants. But a lot of algae are not. And plants tend to do a better job anyway. It's hard to get really good quality rooted saltwater plants. Macroalgae are the best option for that. And they're frankly wonderful. They grow well. They they grow like an epiphyte by attaching to hardscape. They radically control nitrification in the tank, and they're unusual colors and shapes. So they're generally pretty attractive. take out the big rocks like lava rocks when I do a water change. That's interesting. Huh. Well, okay. Oh, Ace Hardware had that deal. Matthew said the $4 for 50 pounds. I have to get over to Ace and check it out. The snails lay eggs in the sand scattered? Sandra says, no, they do not. Snails lay a gelatinous, like the ram's horn snail and the pond snail lay a gelatinous egg mass like tadpole jelly. The mystery snails go outside the water and lay what looks like a mud dauber's nest above the water level. Apple snails bear their young live. I believe MTS do too. There's another one that does. The Spixie snail also bears young live, I think. I may be wrong about that. They may lay an, I think they have an egg mass, come to think of it. Because I had some. They also were dreadful plant eaters. It's not a snail you want. Um, the rabbit snail, I believe, bears young live as well. Although I've never had any born. I've had them for a couple of years. My dad brought us to see Santa's grave. Your dad was a cruel, cruel man.
Yeah.
Sort of explains you, Erie.
That's just no comment.
You're right.
Uh,
Uh,
I'm going
thought I
to
heard one of
try.
your videos. Play sand isn't the best. Yeah, I was just talking about that, Megan. Um, if you can't pour play sand in a tank that has water in it, it'll turn it into a mud hole. But you can put it in the tank dry, cover it carefully when you add water to keep all that dust down in there, and then carefully take it off, and the dust will settle down in it. It'll just keep going down. Blueberry snails. Don't know what a blueberry snail is.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
never heard of.
Nereids lay eggs, but they're single tiny eggs. This one, they lay an egg that hatches one snail, but they are a brackish water snail that's hard to hatch out in freshwater tanks. Bladder snail tank has place sand. Need your top two plant recommendations for a 10. Stem plants. For a brand new tank, stem plants. I do a package of 15 species of stem plant, about four plants to the bunch. It's like 60 plants. Works out to about $1 a plant.
Joe Costa, he said he has a question that's before the donation by Phillips Works, but I'm having difficulty finding it for some reason. Do you think maybe you could look and see Father Fish?
Come again?
Oop, where'd it go? And now I've lost his name. Um, just had his name up. Yeah, someone was asking me to look back past the $100 donation by Phillips Fishworks, and I can't seem to find his question. But
Have them post it again.
yeah, if
Just
you don't
post
mind,
it
please
again.
post it again.
It's too hard to find. We're up to
Yeah,
about 500 comments. It's too hard
yeah.
to go back that far. And in point of fact, you really can't get that far back. It
Okay,
scrolls
that
off.
makes sense.
Yeah, it scrolls out of the library. It won't let us
That
go
makes
back that
sense.
far. Oh, have seen one of my white clouds surfing? White clouds glass surfing.
I've never seen one do
Glass
that.
surfing. It's a combination of things that cause that. Number one, it's boredom. A fish that is in a bare tank is simply trying to get out of that empty area into a more protected environment. And number two, it's a fish that is trying to get out of an environment that is essentially either frightening or unhealthy into a better environment. Anytime you see a fish, what you call it, glass surfing, there is something wrong in that tank. And it may be nothing more than too much empty space. Fish are happiest when the tank is so full of plants and hardscape that you cannot see through it. Fish do not need open water to be happy. They need just the reverse. They need to be able to swim in and around plants and other hardscape. They use that as cover. They use it as grazing areas, as food source. They use it as protection. They use it as it is just natural habitat. When you're
That
on,
makes sense.
when I have been on countless sandbars with big push nets. I never catch anything in open spaces. When I go into grass flats that are thick and dense, it is full of animals, loaded with them. That's where they live. They don't live in open water. The notion that your fish like to have room to swim is utter nonsense. Fish do not like to have open places to swim because that's where they get eaten. What is this? I can't read it.
It says, "Hey, at Father Fish, my Colombian pleco has it. I thought it was stress, and I have one albino hopalo catfish, 3 cories, as well as 5 cardinals. The temperature is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Is still the best way." Oh, sorry,
Yes,
86.
absolutely. I would go to 87, and thank you for the $10 super check, Rup Studios. I would go to 87, 87, 88. You want to make sure it is warm enough that there's no question. 86 could actually be 85, which is just a tad too low. 87 is going to be closer to where you really need to be. So, yeah, but it works absolutely. There are, so I have heard, I have never experienced some ick parasites that apparently live in tropical environments. I have never encountered them. I believe that is in fact not true, because if it were true, they would be all over the tropical environments, and they're not. It is a cold water parasite that is controlled by temperatures high enough to kill them without affecting warm water fish. Now, cold water fish, so, such as Tennessee darters, water that are naturally living in cold water, are themselves not going to survive 86 degrees for 3 days. So you cannot use that treatment with them. What you can do is treat with salt, and salt will kill the parasite. You gradually increase it up to about 2 to 3 tablespoons per gallon, starting at 1 tablespoon per 2 to 3 gallons and increasing it daily by a tablespoon per 2 to 3 gallons until the ick is controlled. And then you bring it back down by adding fresh water to that environment to get them back to a normal non-saltwater environment. So salt works. It's trickier. You got to be a bit more careful with it, but it will be effective. It'll be effective with warm water fish as well. It's simply the case that increasing the temperature to 87 does not hurt tropical and subtropical fish, and it kills the ick parasite. My big platy mommies look at me from under the leaves. That's exactly right. If you have a lot of plants in your tank, your fish are going to be looking at you from behind a plant because you represent a predator. It takes some serious effort to make friends with a wild fish. Not so much with tank raised fish, because they're a bit more used to these big lunking creatures coming in throwing food in their tank. But a native wild species is going to be a bit shy of you and may never really overcome that shyness. My name is Mud. Support independent aquarium stores. Most cities have at least one. That would be where you get good fish. Big box are like puppy farms for fish. Too true,
Yeah,
Mud.
they are.
Absolutely
That
true.
is true.
Absolutely true. Here's something to think about. When I was a kid, a teenager, I lived in Baltimore. That's back in 1950, in the 50s, all through the 50s and into the 60s, before two guys came along and set up a pet department in their superstore. There were 45 tropical fish stores in Baltimore City and its environments that would include Reisterstown, Glen Burnie, Baltimore County, the surrounding areas. 45 stores selling tropical fish. A couple of years ago, there was one, and there had only been one for nearly 20 years. There are now two, I think three, in Baltimore.
Wow.
That is only happening because of the advent of natural aquariums that create environments in which money can be spent on fish and not equipment. Local small fish stores cannot buy equipment at prices below the retail of big box stores. And the best example of this is Petco and their 50% off aquarium sale. I just bought 8 large aquariums for Petco at about $100 each. At wholesale, those tanks are more than $200 at wholesale, which is close to the price that Petco normally sells them for. So the reality is the wholesaler owns the manufacturing company, the retail company. They own Petco. They own um, the aquarium maker. They own Tetra. This is Central Pets. They own the tropical fish wholesaler. They own Segrest Farms.
Wow.
They have a vertical monopoly in the pet industry that's supposed to be illegal.
That's what I
And
was just wondering.
according to federal commerce law,
Right.
it's illegal to maintain a vertical monopoly because it
Yeah.
is a relatively small industry, only a few $1 billion a year in net national sales. They so far have gotten away with it.
That's wild.
As a
That
result,
explains it, though.
a small fish shop like I had cannot afford to buy and carry dry goods. There's no money in it. You can't sell it for a profit.
Yeah.
So, an industry that is dependent on dry goods, on equipment, supplies, materials, those kinds of things, is closed to the local fish hobbyist as a retail business.
Wow.
That's beginning to change now that we have been able to teach larger numbers of people to keep fish in low tech systems where they are not spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on equipment and are able to spend their money on fish. The local fish store does a better job of getting in and keeping those fish alive and healthy. And the fish part of the industry has not been affected in the same way. A local shop can buy from Indonesia, from Thailand, from Poland, from Czechoslovakia, from Israel, and have them shipped in. They may have to spend $5,000 to do it, but they'll get $25,000 worth of stock
Mm-hmm.
and be able to sell at competitive prices a quality product. So it's important what we're doing for the sake of the industry and for the sake of the hobbyists to be able to get and keep that wide variety of animals that we have that are made available to us by the sophisticated professional hobbyist, the professional fish keeper who's able to maintain large numbers of these animals and spawn them, the farmers and the like, the people like LRB who are able to manage that kind of an operation to be able to get substantial numbers of fish out to people. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not
Mm.
raising plants. I'm getting plants from, I'm acting as a local shop. I'm getting plants in and shipping them out. I get more sales by shipping than I possibly can with walk-in traffic. So it makes more sense for me to ship. I can ship all over the country and do. I ship to Hawaii. I ship to Alaska. I ship to Puerto Rico. I ship to Guam. I can ship all over territorial U.S. property. Wherever the U.S. Postal Service goes, I'm there, and I can get plants to you. I'm not doing fish right now. I probably will, but it's going to be limited and specialized. But I'm doing it as a retail business, not as a wholesale business. Because I'm in a warehouse situation, My overhead is somewhat controlled. My traffic is greater, so I can manage more sales and keep my prices down to closer to wholesale prices, although they're certainly not wholesale prices. They're slightly below retail prices, which makes me highly competitive. So it becomes possible to do it only because there are people who have discovered they really can keep plants alive.
Right.
And isn't that exciting? 5 years
It really
ago,
is.
there was no recognition that that was possible. Think about that. 5 years ago, I could not have done what I'm doing now because nobody would have bought the plants, because nobody believed they could keep plants growing successfully and effectively. That's the effectiveness of what we're doing. Walk into any big box store, any pet shop, anywhere in the world, mention Father Fish or natural aquariums, and somebody is going to know what you're talking about. We are not everywhere, and not everybody has got the message, but we're out there enough to be having a significant effect. We need now to overwhelm that process and to genuinely be everywhere. I look for one of the big box stores, Petco, PetSmart, one of them, to contact me and to ask me to rep for them if they will commit to developing a program in their store to market natural systems. If they will do that, I will do that. And I think that's coming. I think that really can happen. Not that I'm
Yeah.
all that supportive of big box stores, but the fact is they're there and they're not going away. And by doing this, it creates a greater environment for the local hobbyist to open their own shop and be in competition with that Petco PetSmart, which maybe is why they won't do it, because they don't want the competition. But I think they're playing a losing game because the equipment market is not going to stay up forever. What they might have to do is give up on selling fish. And I think that's a distinct possibility because they're not doing a good job of it.
No,
There are a
they're
few
not, and they
people
tell you all
and
the
a
wrong
few shops who
information.
are trying, but corporately, they're doing a very poor job of it from a corporate position. They have rules and policies that they force their local shops into that are not productive for the healthy maintenance of livestock. And yet they try to carry livestock. They just haven't got it nailed down. They're not doing it in a way that is really that provides a quality livestock.
Yeah, so at this point, it's like
Yeah,
my husband
Philip
doesn't
says I could see the
mind
big
from
box stores
but
getting rid of fish.
PetSmart.
They really, absolutely. Walmart did it. Walmart did it. And there's no reason for them to keep them, frankly. How we doing temp wise? We got about 10, 15 minutes. Doing good. Doing good. What time we start? We started at 6, didn't we?
Mhm. I
Oh, we
believe
just
so.
at PetSmart. The woman said, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that." Right, it's true. Jerry Hemphill is saying, I made my fish tank the way you said. It's 3 months old. Never test the water. Let the fish tell what they need, plants and fish doing great. Pay attention to the animals. Pay attention to the life, not the numbers on a chart. Did we deal with that? We did deal with that, didn't we?
Yeah, I was looking to see if there's any more questions, but right now,
Mud said you've started a revolution. I think so. I really think so. And
yeah,
I think it's, you know, any of you who are around at the beginning of this stream realize it goes a whole lot deeper than fish tanks. Said Gene Rodriguez has a 1090 super chat. How do you deal with cyanoalgae bloom? Gene, it's the same thing. A cyanoalgae bloom is caused by excess nutrients and an inadequately developed biosystem that's not capable of handling the volume of nutrients that are in the system. So there are a couple of things you do about this. The first thing is stop feeding. And when I say stop feeding, I mean no food of any kind at all for as long as it takes as long as it takes for that tank to clear up. If it takes a month, then it takes a month. Normally, it'll take a week or less. No food at all. Any food you put in there is feeding that cyano. That's number one. Number two, you want to compete with the cyano. Stop giving it nutrients, start competing with it. Put more plants in the tank. Number three, reduce the nutrients available. That means not just stopping feeding, it can also mean water changes. Now, the problem with water changes is that it's a short term fix, it's not a long term fix, it's not a permanent fix. If you're not doing the things to control the amount of nutrients going in there, then all you're doing is flushing your tank treating it like a toilet bowl. And your tank should never be treated like a toilet bowl. That's not its function. Its function is not to be a toilet. Its function is to be a living environment, to be a garden, an aquatic garden, not a toilet. Too many of these people who are into major water changes, that's precisely what they are doing. They are chemically treating their toilets and then routinely flushing them to get everything they've been putting in there out of there so they won't kill the fish. That is sheer asininity, if I can use a complicated word. Better to have a natural aquarium that is equipped to cope with the normal life cycle of the animals living in the system. So that's how you deal with cyano. Don't go crazy. Just don't go crazy. Don't panic. Don't get all in a tizzy. Sit back, take a deep breath, take a nap, wake up and do something simple, like not putting food in the tank, like adding more plants to the tank. Like if it's extreme, doing a small water change. That really doesn't do much good. What does good is reducing the nutrients and competing with that particular growth, that particular living matter. You can also try taking it out. That doesn't really work because it's in there pretty deep and it'll just come right back up. You can scrape it and take some of it out, but that isn't going to get rid of it. That will not control it. Thank you, Jane. With a combo, like 5 different foods ground up and put in agar and dried in feed. Does that sound crazy? It depends entirely on the foods, doesn't it? I mean, if the foods are worthless crap, doesn't matter how many doesn't matter what the variety is. Worthless crap is worthless crap, whether
That's
it's in
true.
agar or not. If it's very high quality food is very high quality food. Depends entirely on what you're dealing with. Have you seen springtime plants outside growing flowers? Lots and lots of them. The fields down here, they get a pink flower, no, a blue flower first. Then they get a buttercup. I don't know what the blue flower is. They get a buttercup though. Just that's fields, hundreds of acres, bright blue, and then bright yellow, and then bright red. And then the farmer comes through and plows them up and puts crops in. But spring is wonderful. It's just
Get it to take
beautiful.
pictures.
Did you know that buttercups are toxic? They
No.
they are. They have a poison
Wow.
in them. They're not edible. A
I did not
buttercup is
know that.
not edible.
That's really funny.
Isn't that amazing? I had
It is.
my Brenda, my niece, makes all kinds of salves and ointments. She's an herbalist
Awesome.
and
Oh,
does
that's
some
awesome.
absolutely brilliant things. We're gonna get her product line on in our store. She has a hand lotion that will not foul the water. It doesn't leave an oil
Oh no,
residue
that's
in the
awesome.
water. It absorbs in the skin. You can put your hands directly in it, and there's no residue at all. It's just amazing stuff. A
Yeah,
lot of
that is.
things like that, just amazing. She does a lot of pharmacological kinds of herbs too.
That is
Remarkable
really
woman.
cool. I can't wait until you get her products in the shop. That's awesome.
Yeah, we need to get them in the shop. We do. She's selling them at a local flea market right now on the weekends. I want to get them in the shop because I think we can knock the socks off of her business.
Oh, absolutely.
Here we go. Stan Pittman. I got a Petco near me with deep substrate and plants in their tanks. The fish department run by a couple of younger guys. There you go. There,
That's
and
awesome.
that's the second one I've heard about. There's another one in Georgia. Stan,
Mhm.
where are you from? I've forgotten. So it's happening. It is happening.
And Chem Aquatics has a very good point. Lotion that is safe for the tank is an amazing selling point. Because for the longest
Again,
time, I would wear gloves because I was afraid that lotion would foul the tank. And
oh yeah, right. We need to
that's
get that on. That's really, yeah. She
yeah.
came. She came to me with that a couple of weeks ago, and I've been too distracted to get it on. I need to do it. Brenda, if you're listening, let's get that on tomorrow. Bring in labels and stuff so we can get it up. How to stop goldfish from uprooting plants. You plant them deep and put a lot of them in. Also, do Anubias. You know, get them on the coarser plants. They will not bother so much with. Also, things like guppy grass and hornwort. They're not going to bother with that much either. How to deal with blackbeard algae. I love this. Blackbeard algae. The best way to deal with blackbeard algae is to learn to really appreciate it because it is a perverse plant. It loves to be hated and hates to be loved. If you learn to love it, it will go away. It is a perversion plant. I don't call it Blackbeard. I call it a perversion plant. It's never around for long. It's one of those things that pops up when there are excess nitrates, and as soon as it gets them under control, it disappears.
Yeah, I had it in my tank. I left it alone, and that's pretty much it. It's
Yeah,
gone.
beetroot Baron. You're becoming more famous in Scotland too. Was in a fish shop last week. Told the guy had a deep substrate tank. The first thing he said was, "You've been watching Father Fish." Right. Put larger stones around the base of the plant. That works really well. Thank you, Brent. Absolutely. Uh, the most poetic description of Blackbeard I've ever heard. Really. Blackbeard, the pervert pirate. Join the Father Fish Discord channel. You betcha. Still too cold for America and a cherry to go into the outdoor pond. No, not at all. Neocaridina like cold water. They do well in cold water. Don't be afraid if you're in Florida to keep them out year round. They will thrive year round in Florida. They cannot stand frozen water. Very little can, but they can get down to 50 into the mid 50s with no trouble at all. So you can't keep them in northern climates over the winter, but you certainly can in Florida. Is there a way to strategically grow algae? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's beautiful. I agree. Absolutely. Just don't put any other plants in there and give it a lot of light and have fish and be feeding them, and you'll get algae guaranteed. What you'll have to do is select the type you want because there will be different kinds that'll come up. Some of them will be very undesirable, and you'll need to get those out. But others that are growing on the rocks and staying fairly close and look like lawns, they're delightful, delightful plants. You just can't, you got to be a really effective gardener with that and be willing to pull out stuff. If you go through on a weekly basis and like with hair algae, just pull it out once a week, you'll get to the point after about a month where it won't be there anymore. You will have gotten it all. Oh, paradise fish. I got 20 paradise fish. Are they nice? Here he says. You know, he's setting me up. You do know he's setting me up.
Oh yeah,
We all know he's setting me up.
I think it's
Erie,
his podcast.
listen, I think you ought to put them in all of your tanks because they're so pretty and they will just flow in all your tanks, especially put them with bettas and with angels and with other really sensitive fish because they're so pretty. They will simply highlight the grandeur and the beauty of those fish. I think that's what you should do. With a bunch of them like that, you really need to spread the joy around. Go for it, Erie. And let me know how it works out. I'd be delighted to hear. Uh,
This time, Father Fish won the game of trying to make me laugh because that was
uh,
good.
uh.
Oh,
Love to learn to culture Daphnia. I've done it.
it's
I haven't
fun.
done it here, and I really need to. Um, the key is to have two vats. One is green water, the other is Daphne. And never let the Daphne near the green water vat. Never. But use the green water vat as food source for the Daphnia. If you can do that, you can make it work. Paradise fish can be temperamental. That's nicely put, Bro Badman. Temperamental they are, to say the least. My plecos eat the BBA. They probably do. They probably do. Ranchu keeps it short. Yeah, Ranchu will work. Any of the goldfish will feed on algae. That's a great way to control algae. Also controls duckweed. I keep thinking to myself, I need to do that. I've got algae in all of my vats. I need to get goldfish in there to get it cleaned out. I haven't done it because I've been worried about the culture, but I'm not selling culture anymore. I just had too many problems with it, shipping it, and it was never really a good quality culture. So I've discontinued that. I'm not even selling the leaves anymore. You want culture, go out and get some. That's the best way to do it anyway. Go out into the highways and byways. You will get something better than I can ship you, guaranteed. But yeah, goldfish, particularly fancy goldfish. I need to start getting some. Erie, he knows I'm joking. Oh, really? Ah, I was I was trying to hurt you there, Erie. I was trying to put a hurting on you. Gee whiz, you're pulling my leg. Huh. Don't take the bait, huh? You gotta have better bait than that, guys. You gotta have something I really want. Uh,
You know they're
oh,
gonna see
that's
that as a challenge,
interesting.
right?
Culturing Daphne in a shrimp only tank. Yeah, that works. That works. You're not gonna get thick cultures of it, is the only issue. But you will get some. Cool. Ishan is gonna release her female betta. Go for it. Go for it. Isopods. Yeah, I like isopods. I collected a bunch of moths, ground moths, yesterday, about 4 or 5 different species of moth. What is she going on about now? We just lost
Hi.
the what?
Cornwell's comment. He's like, "Can we have a moment of silence in remembrance of John?" And I'm like,
Remembrance of what?
"Okay." In remembrance of John.
Of John. Oh dear.
He's not dead.
Ask John. A moment of silence. Oh dear. You know what? You do that one more time, Cornwall. I'm going to kick your butt off the stream. Honest to God, that is just harsh. It's harsh. Don't do that. Not nice. Funny, maybe, but not nice. Ugh. Will fish school in a heavily planted tank? Um, yeah, good point, Darwire. Um, they do and they don't. They will hang together as a group. They'll move through the tank. If it's a big enough tank, they'll move as a group, but they'll also tend to break up more. So yeah, they shoal in open water. That's what a shoal is for. That's what that swimming pattern, that schooling fish is all about. It's a way to protect the species at the expense of a few specimens. And in point of fact, it's pretty effective because it means that the predator, in order to feed, has to be able to focus on one animal. And when they're flashing around them, it becomes impossible to do that. You got to catch them alone to do it. So, yeah, that's an interesting point. I don't know where to go with that, but it's a very interesting point. Good night and sweet dreams, Harry. Der Mann Kagas Kadlamsalm. Who's John? Thank you, David. Erie first. Cornwall. I knew karate, Cornwall says. Ain't gonna do you a lot of good across the pond, Cornwall. You can't get me from where you are. Not with your karate, you can't. Male is chasing the female. Just leave them alone, Nishan. Leave them alone. They'll be all right. I'll tell you what, put a lid on it and walk away and ignore it until tomorrow. Go back and look at it tomorrow. Just leave them alone. Who wouldn't eat a fish if they could catch one? Couldn't agree more. I found a blue scud in one of my tanks. No one's interested in eating him. A blue scud. Curious. We have a population of inedible scuds. Strange. Can bettas survive in soft acid water? Absolutely they can. Is it normal for plants to die back before they start growing again? Absolutely it is. Thanks for all the info. Mostly about expectations, I suppose. Don't expect the proper school in a father fish tank. But, okay. Green water is hands down the best way to culture Daphnia. With it, you don't have to feed them regularly. They live in the food. Feeding dry powdered algae will result in needing to feed a lot. Right. Erie, bye. Bye. Okay. Ishan says, okay, fatherfish. Okay. It'll be fine. The blue scud. All right. Happy Easter to all. Join the fatherfish Discord. What time is it? Are we there? We're well past there. Is a large rock okay in a 10-gallon, or should I replace it with plants? A large rock in a 10-gallon. You know, I really want to say it's your call, but I think you ought to replace it with plants. I really do.
Yeah.
Alrighty. An invulnerable betta. Can I use water bottle water for fish tank? You can. Pond flakes tetra. Yeah. It ain't great, but it's okay. Flake food is probably the worst quality food that you can possibly feed fish. In terms of quality. Oh. What would you recommend lids for the tank really? I've heard after the light goes off, the pH will swing too much if lid's on. No, not true. Not true. That's why you have an air pump, why you have a sponge filter, because it's creating airflow. I used to be addicted to the hokey pokey, then I turned myself around. We needed that, Astrolabs. Desperately, we needed that. That's a happy note to end on. Let us all turn ourselves around, hokey pokey. And with that, we shall say bye for now.
Bye,
Love
guys.
you all.